Details are already trickling out from the Justice Department report. Among the headlines, the internal watchdog finds ousted FBI Director James Comey broke from the Bureau's procedures, but that his actions were not politically motivated. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge is live at the Justice Department. She's trying to get herself together there because she's been in the room reviewing these documents. You've been on this story from the very beginning, Catherine. This is a pivotal moment. We've been waiting for this IG report. What can you tell us so far?
I think one of the main headlines, Dana, is that the Inspector General, after nearly an 18-month review and speaking to about 100 different witnesses and reviewing tens of thousands of documents, concluded that the former FBI Director James Comey was insubordinate when he made that July 2016 statement where he publicly discussed the Bureau's findings about the Clinton email investigation, and then he recommended against criminal charges. The IG found that he was insubordinate because he took actions to deliberately conceal his decision to speak publicly from his immediate supervisor, Attorney General Loretta Lynch, and her deputy, Sally Yates. The IG report reads, quote, "We found it was extraordinary and insubordinate for Comey to conceal his intentions from his superiors, the Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General, for the admitted purpose of preventing them from telling him not to make the statement and to instruct his subordinates in the FBI to do the same." One of the other issues in the Inspector General's report has to do with the text messages between FBI agent Peter Strzok, who was the #2 in the counterintelligence division. He had a crossover role in the Clinton email case and then also the Russia case, and the messages he exchanged with FBI lawyer Lisa Page. What the IG report concludes is that these text messages really cast a cloud over the entire Clinton case and raised questions about whether decisions were made for political reasons. Prior to Director Comey's statement in July, the IG concludes that they did not find, and this is important, the phrase, documentary evidence of political bias. But newly discovered texts last month in May changed that equation in October of 2016. And you'll recall October of 2016 is a pivotal month because that is when tens of thousands of Clinton emails are found on the laptop of her aide Huma Abedin that she shares with her husband Anthony Weiner. The newly discovered text, again, is between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, and it was sent in August 8th of 2016. And it reads, Page stated, "Trump's not ever going to become president, right? Right?" And then Strzok responded, "No, he's not. We'll stop it." The Inspector General found that that specific text spoke to a mindset of political bias, and it led the Inspector General to conclude that in October, when the FBI seemed to be dragging its feet over these newly discovered emails on the Abedin and Weiner laptop, that Strzok was the one who was dragging his feet, and they concluded that political bias was an issue in this particular case, Dana.
And Catherine, that particular text exchange, is there something in this report that says that it was not in an original batch that was sent to Congress, that the Inspector General finds it later, which would make you wonder how did this particular text message get, go missing, and was there any underhanded activity there to delete it?
Right. I want to be careful because I want to be respectful of some of the boundaries in terms of what we've been able to learn through our reporting. What I can say is that if you look into the footnotes of the Inspector General's report, you can see that the text was discovered in May, and I think it's important to recognize that there's been an ongoing process in terms of trying to recover text messages from the phones of Lisa Page and Peter Strzok. So at this point, I would say it is wrong to conclude that there was some kind of malfeasance or an effort to hide this text message. I think what's more accurate to say is that the forensics allowed the email to be recovered when earlier steps had failed to identify it.
Catherine, Congressman Trey Gowdy, of course you know him well, he had a very strongly worded statement. Let me read a part of it to you and get your reaction. He said, Peter Strzok's manifest bias, trending toward animus, casts a pall on this investigation. Bias is so pernicious and malignant as to both taint the process, the result, and the ability to have confidence in either. His bias was so pervasive and toxic as to call into question any other investigations he was part of, including his role in the investigation of what Russia did in 2016. Your thoughts on that?
Well, as I said at the outset, the Inspector General really saw the text messages between Strzok and Page as kind of like a roadmap, and really their unfiltered impressions through the course of the Clinton email case and then later the carryover into the Russia investigation. The text I just pointed out to you, this newly discovered text, went to the issue of bias in October of 2016, that Peter Strzok was more interested in prioritizing the Russia investigation than he was picking up what was seen as sort of loose ends in the mid-year exam or the Clinton email investigation. It's important when you read this report to understand it is not making any judgments or findings about political bias and what role it may have played in the follow-on Russia investigation, which involved, as you rightly note, many of the same players, Dana.
Catherine, then let me talk to you about James Comey, because he obviously features prominently here. You mentioned that there is, and I want to get your take on this, how much does the report go into that meeting that Bill Clinton had with Loretta Lynch on the tarmac and Comey's then decisions after that? When you say that the report says he was insubordinate, was he acting sort of that he was above the law? He was no longer U.S. attorney. He was the FBI director. Was this his call to make, and does the report address that?
Well, the report has a lengthy section about this Arizona tarmac meeting, which was shortly before Hillary Clinton's FBI interview about the mishandling of classified information. And the report cites then Attorney General Loretta Lynch for having poor judgment in terms of taking the meeting. It's described as unplanned, taking that meeting and then allowing the conversation to go on as long as it did. Both Loretta Lynch and Bill Clinton were interviewed as part of the Inspector General's investigation, and based on what I've read so far, their account is that it was unplanned. On the issue of insubordination, at least what I've seen so far, it goes specifically to Director Comey's decision to go outside his authorities and to have that public statement in early July where he announced the findings of the investigation, that indeed there was classified information
Catherine, we actually
that was
have
on the
that.
Clinton emails. Yeah.
I just want to remind people, if we could just play that. I believe that is call for 20. Control room, can you play that? Number 20. It's Comey on July 5th, 2016. They don't have it? Let me just read it to you, Catherine. It says, although we did not find clear evidence that Secretary Clinton or her colleagues intended to violate laws governing the handling of classified information, there is evidence that they were extremely careless in their handling of very sensitive, highly classified information. I've seen some reports on Twitter, and you've read the report, so let me ask you here. Is there a finding in this report that a foreign actor was actually able to access Hillary Clinton's emails?
We were able to obtain a document earlier today. This was an email that was sent in May of 2016 among a small group of senior FBI officials, including this FBI agent Peter Strzok, who was number 2 in the counterintelligence division. I think you need to pay close attention to the language, because he says that they know foreign actors got access to some of the Clinton emails by compromising the accounts of her staff. What he does not say is that the compromise was on the server itself. Oh. But he does say that there were compromises of ancillary email accounts. But that's significant because he states in the email there was at least one email that was classified at the secret level, and that is one of the highest levels of classification. As you know, just back to the issue of insubordination, I think it's worth reading from the Inspector General's report again. It states, pardon me, I'm just going to go back here.
No problem. problem?
We found that it was extraordinary and insubordinate for Comey to conceal his intentions from his superiors, the Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General, for the admitted purpose of preventing them from telling him not to make the statement and to instruct his subordinates in the FBI to do the same. Comey waited until the morning of that press conference to inform Lynch and Yates of his plans to hold one without them, and he did so only after notifying the press. As a result, Lynch's office learned about Comey's plans via press inquiries rather than from Comey himself. Moreover, when Comey spoke with Lynch, he did not tell her what he intended to say in his statement. So they do use the word insubordination, insubordinate. And also in the current FBI Director Christopher Wray's response to the report, he cites a number of recommendations, about 8 recommendations that the Bureau is taking on board. And he does specifically use this term insubordination in his discussion of his predecessor, Director Comey's actions at that time, Dana.
All right. Catherine Herridge, if you'll stick around, we'll come back to you. And I know we're going to see you later on the 5 as well. We appreciate all you've done in the last several months, but certainly today. You've been working your tail off. We will come back to you in just a few minutes.
Thank
All right,
you.
let's bring in Bob Driscoll. He's